Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Another episode of That's Right, I Said It. Listen, this is a free service. I don't ask for anything other than just take 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button. You know what? The first episode's free. But if you've watched more than one, and certainly if you're going back and binging my whole series, like a lot of folks have told me they've been doing, I would definitely appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. And like the video as well, and comment down below so we can hear a little bit about your story. We've been talking about, not only kratom, but opiate withdrawals. We touched on that last video. I'm going to try to get a little bit into that today. But for the most part, I have a really cool topic that I came up with last night that I thought, you know what, this would be really fun to talk about. And it's called, why are gifted people more likely to abuse substances? Substance abusers and drug addicts catch a lot of flack for obvious reasons. A lot of it is deserved. But what's wrong with patting ourselves on the back a little bit? Not for being a drug addict, not for all the negative things that come with being a drug addict. Let me pat myself on the back for stealing people's medications and active opiate addiction, or let me pat myself on the back for causing my family to pack up and leave me because I was a drug addict. No, I'm not talking about that sort of thing. But I've said on this channel before that drug addicts can be some of the most talented, compassionate, driven people that you'll ever meet in your life, despite having a disease of drug addiction. And I stand by that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I actually printed out an article that I find very interesting, and when I read through this information, I'm like, wow, that explains a lot, and it causes me to look into my own life, my own personality, my own character traits in general, my own talents, and just be like, wow, a lot of this makes sense. So that's why I'm a drug addict. I'm going to blame it all on this right here. This is why I'm a drug addict. Oh, that's probably a little bit of a stretch, but either way, right out of the gate, so I had Lula pop back up, and for those of you who don't remember, Lula started watching the channel a few days ago. She is currently about 15 years in of using opiates, specifically Vicodin. She said she didn't care if I talked about this, so I'm going to talk about it. Her interest, she's interested in coming off of the Vicodin, but she was interested in using kratom to replace the Vicodin, as many people do, replacing the harder, more dangerous opiates, with a plant. Sounds like a pretty good deal. Not to say that kratom doesn't have its downsides and its downfalls, because obviously it does. So that's not where I'm going with this. But the last I heard from her, that the last time she had tried kratom, she couldn't get it to work for her. We established that maybe she wasn't taking enough, and we talked about the fact that one Vicodin does not equal one kratom, that you're going to have to take a significant amount more of the kratom to have the same sort of opiate type effect that, by example, a Vicodin would on your brain, hence helping with withdrawals and stuff like that, so that you're not just going into full-on cold turkey withdrawal mode, acute withdrawals, right? So that's what she's trying to do, and she's interested in going on to kratom, or making a jump from the Vicodin onto kratom. Well, she messaged me back yesterday, and I'm not going to read her whole comment, but basically she's going, can anybody help me? The horrible, bitter taste of kratom is just something that I can't get past. She said that she tried to mix it in some OJ, mix it in some orange juice like I suggested, and she immediately, once she started to drink it, the very first gulp, she upchucked it, she said. So, and it's interesting. Some people just really struggle with it. My wife, she doesn't take as much kratom as I do, but she does take kratom from time to time, and she also struggles with the taste. I've never seen her throw up or upchuck it, but she's definitely one of those people that her stomach is just a little more sensitive to that sort of thing, and she does kind of struggle with the taste of kratom a little bit. Not as much as Lula has struggled with it, but you know, and then on the flip side of that, you know, you have the capsules, which you don't have to really taste it if you're consuming the capsules, right? Because they're inside a capsule, and by the time they burst open, they're well past your taste buds and your taste senses, right? So she's interested in doing that, but from the best we can guess, she's gonna have to take a pretty significant amount of capsules to account for that Vicodin that she's been taking, or the amount of Vicodin that she's been taking. So we've pretty much established that, and she's trying to figure out just any other way, a way that she can keep it down, a way that she can somehow not have to deal with the horrible taste of the kratom, but still get the benefits and the effects of the kratom, outside of having to swallow, you know, for example, 15 capsules. That is a lot of capsules. And then the gel caps that go around that the capsules are made up of can also kind of bother people's digestion and stomach and stuff like that. So this is something I really hadn't thought about for her. We were really trying to help her figure out how to make that jump from the stronger Vicodin onto something like kratom, but I didn't foresee that her biggest issue in this whole process was going to be the horrible taste of kratom. As all you guys out there know, we're not taking the kratom for its great taste, because it doesn't have great taste. In fact, it tastes like shit. I mean, let's just be honest. Kratom does not taste well, or does not taste good. And so we're taking it for completely different reasons, but I'm not sure exactly what to tell her. I mentioned to her the extracts, but hey, the extracts don't taste very well either. You know, all of anything that has a decent amount of kratom in it does not taste that well. I have tried some of the kratom gummies. They do have kratom gummies. You may look online for something like that. Those are the taste of those, although you can taste the kratom in them, you know, they're not as bad. And they are kratom extract gummies. But for me, somebody who has a decent tolerance to opiates, you know, I have to take, you know, 2 or 3 of those to get any sort of effect. And if you're coming off of something like Vicodin, I don't know what the direct translation would be, but it's probably not a good idea to turn around and have to swallow 10 kratom gummies. I just don't think, you know, that's going to be an option for her. So if you out there can leave a comment, and if you have any ideas for Lula, aside from just swallowing a bunch of capsules, that maybe she can consume the kratom in some way, shape, or form that does not affect her so much in terms of the horrible, bitter, plant-like taste of it. Because it is a plant. Let's get real. You know, you're basically swallowing a ground-up plant. And as you can imagine, not very savory at all. You know, this ain't no steak from your local steakhouse. Nothing like that. So I thought the orange juice would do it. For I have kind of a cast iron stomach. It takes a lot to make me sick or upchuck. So I have the ability of just kind of, you know, I kind of have that ability. But the orange juice for me tends to hide the taste pretty well, and in a lot of ways I can't tell much of a difference when I put the kratom in the orange juice, and then whether I'm doing that versus just drinking the orange juice by itself. I mean, obviously there's kind of some aftertaste, you know, with the grittiness of the kratom being in there. That's obvious. But anyway, please let her know if you guys have any ideas about that. Outside of that, I'm going to go ahead and move on. So I'm going to read you the intro to this article about why are gifted people more likely to abuse substances. All right. It is sad but true that many gifted people struggle with addiction, whether it is to drugs, alcohol, or some other substance. Talented people seem to be more prone to addiction than the average person. Why is this? There are a number of theories surrounding this, but no one really knows for sure. In this article, we will take a look at some of the possible reasons why gifted people are more likely to struggle with alcohol or drug addiction. We will also discuss ways to overcome addiction and live a healthy, productive life. All right, I might not go too much into that aspect of the article because that's what we talk about on here all the time. All right, the first one is unobtainable expectations. One possible reason why gifted people are more prone to addiction is that they have high expectations for themselves. They often expect to be perfect, and when they inevitably fall short, they turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope. Unfortunately, gifted individuals are also used to being the best in everything that they do. So when they become addicted, it can be difficult for them to admit that they need help. The second one is emotional sensitivity. Another reason gifted people struggle with alcohol and drug addiction is that they have high levels of emotion. They feel things very deeply, and sometimes these deep emotions can cause them distress. In order to dull their sensitivity or emotional pain, they turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope with life's difficulties. Gifted individuals might also experience depression due to their heightened awareness of the world around them. This could also lead one down a path towards addiction if not appropriately addressed through therapy and or medication management by an experienced therapist who specializes in treating patients with mental health issues and addiction. Additionally, gifted people may use alcohol or drugs to self-medicate. In this case, outpatient treatments may be very beneficial for gifted people who are struggling with addiction. And I like this sentence right here. It is important to remember that addiction is a disease, not a character flaw. Man, that's a big one. That's a big one. Because even us drug addicts tend to look at it as a character flaw. You know, we look at it in ourselves as a character flaw. It's not a character flaw because oftentimes the character of that person is way different than what their actions say they are, you know, and we talk about that a lot on this channel as well. The third one is psychological distress. Many gifted people suffer from psychological distress. This can be due to the fact that they feel as if they are different from other people and don't quite fit in. They may also feel like they are a burden to their families or society. Gifted people can also be perfectionists, which can lead to anxiety, depression, which in turn could lead to alcohol and drug abuse. If you feel like I am singing your life or speaking your life with my words right now, you are not alone. Because when I read this article, I literally feel like someone is strumming my pain with their fingers, singing my life with their words. I'm not sure why I did that. Anyway, gifted people often have a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that constantly run through their minds. As a result, they often overthink situations. And occasionally it becomes too much for them to handle. This is usually when gifted people will turn to a substance to numb and blank out their thoughts. Again, very, very, very reminiscent and indicative of all things me. And I can't speak for all of you guys, but I've known other people that were addicted to substances in my life. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, the people that I have known that have had substance abuse issues were very, very talented people in one area or another of their life. You know, talent can exist on many different levels, many different spectrums, in many different facets of someone's life. But I'm telling you, 90%, now I've known a couple of drug addicts where I'm like, nah, you're not only a drug addict, but you ain't talented worth a shit either. I mean, everybody's got something to offer. Don't get me wrong. Maybe I just didn't know what that person's talent was. It hadn't expressed itself in their lives yet. But more people than not that I have known that had a substance abuse issue, and even ones that didn't have a substance abuse issue but had mental health issues like depression or anxiety or whatever, very, very talented, emotionally sensitive, in tune people. When I saw this one about emotional sensitivity, I was just like, wow, dude. You know, I can remember as a child, you know, being as a kid, getting stressed out when other people around me expressed anger or disappointment, or they expressed that they were upset about something, because I'm so like emotionally in tune with people, you know. And then that's why I have a deep concern for people, for all of you guys. You know, I want to see everyone thrive. I want to see everyone do well, because when there's dissension and when they don't, I carry that burden, you know, for other people, on behalf of other people. And so that's why I'm like one of those people that's just a, you know, major cheerleader for people. I just want everyone to do well. I want everyone to thrive in their lives. And I think that's why I'm that way. The last one is loneliness and boredom. Many gifted people feel lonely and bored because they don't find that most people can keep up with them intellectually or emotionally. This can lead to a feeling of isolation and a search for something to fill the emptiness. Drugs and alcohol are often appealing because they provide an instant sense of pleasure, excitement, or relief from the boredom. But unfortunately, these substances, usually in the long run, make the problems worse. Okay, all right, so that's the last one, and I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to leave in the comments a link down below. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in my series. Back in 2012-13 area, I'm a musician. I've done music all my life, and I decided that I wanted to write, produce, and engineer a gospel album, and I did that. I did that from home, and I've got about 20 songs. About 18 of them are original ones that I composed myself, did all of the instrumentation, wrote all the lyrics, I recorded them, and I even engineered all the music, and used a lot of, you know, local talent, vocalists from the area and stuff like that. And it's actually really freaking good. Really freaking good. And so I can really relate to this stuff because I've always felt a little bit different than other people. And, you know, it's something I've heard all my life. Wow, you're so talented, you know, because I play several different instruments, you know, piano, guitar. I also sing, I can play drums. I'm an okay drummer, but I'm better at like piano, guitar, and singing, and writing, of course. But, I've always felt a little bit different and a little bit set apart in those ways. And it has definitely caused me some degree of isolation. And I wanted to be a professional musician, but I would say a lot of the reason that I never really strongly pursued it and never really made it is because I did isolate myself, which is something that's indicative of a drug addict also, isolation. And when I was recording that album, I mean, I locked myself in my home studio like I was in a freaking cave, man. Like I was a bear hibernating for 3 months at a time. And don't worry about the fact that I was snorting Adderall up my nose and taking Adderall and staying up for 3 days at a time to the point where I was actually hallucinating. Don't worry about all that. You know, don't worry about the fact that I was doing this while I was convicted by God to record a gospel album. That when you hear some of the ballads that I have on this album, I've had people reach out to me and say, oh my God, you know, I heard that song Wait, I heard that song Victory, and I just broke down crying, and God spoke to me. And so God gave me this ability to you know, translate his feeling to people through music during this time. And he used a drug addict to do it. And he used a drug addict who was at the bottom of his freaking barrel, man. The time, go listen to it. The time that I recorded all of these gospel songs that you will hear on this website that I'm going to send you to, the times that I recorded all of that were literally the bottom of the barrel, rock bottom, worst absolute possible time of my life, emotionally, professionally, in terms of my drug abuse, my relationships. I was estranged from my son at that time. I was divorced. I was in failed relationships. I mean, everything was crumbling down for me. You're looking at a person who's had to rebuild himself, and who has been working very hard for the last 10 or 15 years to rebuild me and rebuild my brand. I went from being on top of the world and having the potential to do just amazing, great things to, renting a room for my brother and not even having a job except a couple of days a week DJing. And during all of this time is when I wrote and recorded all of these songs. And it's just a testament that sometimes God will use your pain, and he will use the strife and the anguish that you are currently feeling in your life to draw things out of you, and to draw things and he used me as an instrument and a tool during that time to draw out things that he wanted to convey to people through my music. And it's just quite amazing. Sometimes I'll listen to it, some of my music these days, and I'm just like, I can't believe I wrote that. I can't believe I was the one that birthed that and that did that. And furthermore, I can't believe that God used me to do that at such a low point in my life. And he's been known to do that. When you're in the bottom, very, very bottom, in the darkness, and you're about to just fall out into the abyss of just despair and nothingness, that's when he'll grab you and he'll put his hand on you. And he used me during that time to minister to myself. And I'm not trying to get religious, but I'm trying to say he used me during that time to bring my own self out of the fire, to pull my own self out of the dark. And it was through that process of recording and writing and recording that album that I kind of, in a lot of ways, found myself and realized that you can't pray to God and say, God, I just want you to take this away from me. This issue, this drug addiction, whatever it is, I just need you to take that away from me, and just sit back and wait for his hand to move. Nah, brother. Nah, brother. God, that's what I was expecting him to do and anticipating that he would do at that time, and he didn't. He kept his hands off. I mean, he helped me to write the album, but in terms of my drugs and everything else negative that was surrounding me and going on in my life at that time, he didn't touch any of that. He didn't touch any of that shit. And it's because I wasn't helping myself. I was expecting him to do it all for me. And he'll do it, but God's thing is, let's do it together. I'll help you. He wants to see you put in the work. He's not just going to reach down and say, addiction gone, all your troubles gone, all your your inability to cope with, stress and problems and issues in your life, gone. I've just magically removed it. Nah, brother. He wants you to put in the work, because if that would be affecting free will if he just took it away from you, and if he just took it away from you, snapped your fingers, you wouldn't learn the tools along the way to strengthen yourself, to be able to pull yourself out of it again. You wouldn't have learned the resiliency to be able to move on to the next thing. If he would have just snapped his fingers and taken it away from you, you wouldn't have the how-to next time. You understand what I mean? And that's something that I really saw in that period of my life. It was really, really remarkable. So check the link. I'm going to put the link. And when you have a few free moments, go in there and listen to some of my music. I wrote and produced every bit of that music, to even the composition of all the instruments and everything. I did that using like Pro Tools, Adobe Audition, keyboard, and microphone, basically, and a guitar, but a lot of it I sequenced in terms of, add-ins. Anyway, I'm going down a whole new rabbit hole now, but click the link, go in there and listen to some of my music. A couple of the songs specifically I would listen to are Wait. Victory is a good one, because I want you guys to hear these specific ones, but all of them are good, if I'm being completely honest. I think all the songs are good, and anyway, go check it out. So I wanted to, with this article talking about gifted people and why we tend to be more likely to abuse substances, I wanted to read about some famous people in history that accomplished and did great things, but they had substance abuse issues. The first one is Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was one of the preeminent magicians of the earliest 20th century, along with being an occultist, poet, and mountaineer. He was Victorian England's bad boy, and he rebelled against so-called polite society. Naturally, this involved taking large quantities of drugs, including heroin, mescaline, cocaine, solvents, and more cocaine. This doesn't even include an ungodly amount of alcohol and cannabis. Number 2, Charles Dickens. And I remember hearing this. Charles Dickens is in part responsible for the idea of White Christmas, of all things, but his main vice lay in a much darker substance, opium. The Man Who Brought Us a Christmas Carol, A Tale of Two Cities, and David Copperfield would retire at the end of a long day riding to puff on a hookah filled with poppy latex. He died of a stroke, which may have been caused partially by opium use. Number 3, Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway might well be one of America's top authors and journalists of early to mid-20th century. He even won a Nobel Prize for his work. However, alcohol would be a constant companion, particularly in his later years. He perhaps summed up what every writer has known. Writing, at its best, is a lonely life. Drinking likely exacerbated a medical condition he had that led to mental confusion and depression. Hemingway eventually took his own life. I didn't realize that. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is considered a major figure in the American Romantic movement, and he is famous for his poems and stories, many of which dealt with the Macrobee. Quoth the raven, nevermore, is perhaps one of the most well-known refrains from a poem. Like Hemingway after him, he had a major addiction to alcohol, using it to dull the pain of a stressful life that often saw him beset with financial and personal problems. His death remains a mystery, as it happened in very odd circumstances. Howard Hughes. If you've not seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, what is the name of it? Hell, it might be Howard Hughes. I can't remember the name of it, but Leonardo DiCaprio plays the character of Howard Hughes. Great movie. If you've not seen it, I would suggest watching that movie. Whether Howard Hughes was addicted to opiates remains a matter of contention. However, he did take a lot of opiates throughout his life, perhaps to quell his mind initially. However, numerous crashes in experimental aircraft took their toll on his health, and he started injecting opiates into the muscle. There is no doubt he was a genius. However, he helped design numerous aircraft, created and directed a number of films, and even made a prototype hospital bed that was the basis of those used today. This guy was not an engineer, and he designed and built some of the top military aircraft of his day. And it's just unheard of. And he ran, a multi-million dollar company, and was a very extremely wealthy man that had these huge contracts with the government where his company was designing the military aircraft, and and he's just a regular guy, but the genius of him, maybe not in whole, but in part, tormented him for all of his days. And that movie does a great job of showing that, and Leonardo DiCaprio did a great job of showing what I feel like Howard Hughes would have been like. Kurt Cobain is perhaps famous for his unintelligible style of singing. As for his influence on the grunge scene, let's be honest, how many people can understand all the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit? His use of heroin worried people, though, and in 1994 he joined the 27 Club, a litany of stars who have died at the age of 27 due to suicide, alcohol, or drug use. I didn't realize that 27 itself was a specific number there. Sigmund Freud was a great proponent of cocaine, recommending its use for numerous diseases and symptoms. I bet he was. Freud was aware of cocaine's uses as an anesthetic, but he also claimed it cured a friend's morphine addiction, one that was demonstrated not to be true a few months later. Freud would also regularly take cocaine for depression and migraines. One good thing may have come out of Freud's drug use. He created psychoanalytic theory while high on cocaine, which explains a number of assertions. However, this spurred research into psychiatry and psychoanalysis, which forms the basis of modern health. Stephen King, addicted to cocaine, Xanax, Valium, NyQuil, beer, tobacco, marijuana. Robert Downey Jr. smoked crack. Vincent van Gogh and all his amazing paintings. What's the one about Starry Night? I mean, who doesn't have that? Who doesn't have that somewhere in the foresets of their mind, that painting? He had chronic alcoholism. Winston Churchill. I mean, the list just goes on and on of, you know, amazing people who have accomplished amazing things. Who has substance abuse issues. But anyway, I know this is going to be relative to a lot of you guys. It really is. If you look at somebody who has substance abuse issues, a lot of times they are a special person. They are a special individual in many ways, and a lot of that has to do with being talented or gifted in some area. And I'm not trying to pat us on the back and say, whoa, it's okay to be a drug addict, because that means we're gifted. That's why, you know. And I feel bad about being a drug addict, so let me let me call myself gifted and talented. But it is what it is, man. You know, it's the God's honest truth. It really is. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you enjoy this sort of content, just a real guy talking about substance abuse and actually living the struggle, hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment down below to let me know what your experiences are and what you think about this. Let me know what your talent or gift is. All right, guys, this is Corey out. See you next time. Peace.